you very much for joining in tonight. It's always an absolute pleasure to have you on board and have you watching every week diligently for some of you, which is absolutely fantastic. So tonight we decided to just shake things up just a little bit, try something a little bit different. And in studio, we've got Baynham, Goredema, and Senzo Maphisa, who are our tennis superstars for tonight. So, Baynham, welcome.
Thanks, Godwin. Thanks, man. Thanks to have you on the show. And great show, man. I've been enjoying the past episodes. Thanks a lot, man.
Senzo, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Godwell. Thanks for having me.
It's an absolute honor that you're here on the show. It's not often that we get people as talented as you are here. So thank you very much.
Keep going.
Yeah, so it is great to have you here. And the beauty of this is you come from two different backgrounds of tennis, you know, where Senzo, you probably entertained the thought of playing professional tennis more than Baynham, which always is nice to have both sides of the coin. So I'm going to start with you, Senz. Where did it start for you in terms of tennis?
No, so actually, funnily enough, I don't know if I ever thought to play professionally. For me, it was the first time I went to, when I was in primary school, the tennis courts were dust. So they were, so not clay courts, so not like you see on the French Open, it was literal dust. So my first tennis experience was just on this unmade court, just kind of hitting the ball, and it was it was PE, and then I just started playing from there. You've got to play a lot with the tennis coach. I was like, hey, you could do this a little more seriously. Spoke to my parents, and then I just started taking it up from there.
Wow, I thought, I've seen you play. I thought you'd have walked straight out of a clay court and just would have been smashing balls from get-go. But it's nice to hear that you come from humble beginnings.
Yeah, no, the humblest. I think it was the worst court in Bulawayo, in Zimbabwe. So it was very humble beginnings. But yeah, I played tennis with all the other sports. So at that age 6, I was anything with a ball running, I was there.
Wow, all-round sportsman. And Baynham, your side, how did tennis come about? I see you're wearing a Zimbabwe cricket shirt, but I'm going to get to that later. But let's start with the tennis first.
Later or never will be better. But so for me, I started much later than 6. Hey, Senzo, that's really early that you started. I started at about, I think it was around grade 6, grade 7, around there sometime. A neighbor of ours was a player. He used to play tennis. So I used to see him going out every Saturday afternoon in his fancy gear. And then we weren't allowed to stray too far from our house. So we never really got to go and see what exactly I was doing. But then I started playing properly in Form 1 when I got to high school. That's when I started playing tennis. And I played throughout high school. After high school, I played for the college. And but at a very not so professional level. But we were playing against other professionals, unfortunately. So it was tough, it was enjoyable. But I'll get into that more as we go along.
So I'm guessing you are at one of those schools where the professional schools would be licking their lips and they're coming to play you and they're coming to try all their trick shots on you.
And I'm telling you, I think they really relished it because outside of school, there were always the battles that go on between schools. And taking us down was great news for everybody. They really enjoyed that. So I'm sure they enjoyed that, beating us thoroughly. Because I think that's the only sport they ever beat us at. We beat them in all other sports except tennis. Yeah. So maybe let me just go into why they beat us so thoroughly most of the time. So in Mutare, there was a development program that was in Mutare that nurtured boys and girls It was run by a lady called Mrs. Martin. I don't know what her first name is. I just remember that.
Lindsay.
You know Lindsay Martin?
Yeah.
So yeah, so it was that program that she used to run. And I honestly don't know if that program still exists, but that was such a great program. And coming from Dangabura, which was like a township, the second biggest township in Mutare, boys that came through that program, we had about 10 boys who represented Zimbabwe that I can count, that I know. And our school, we didn't have any guys who represented Zim for tennis. So these guys would train every single day for 365 days of the year. And we only trained on Friday afternoons because tennis was like a minor sport. It was a fringe sport. So we only trained on Friday afternoons, and nobody wanted to stay on a Friday afternoon at school. So we'd play against these guys in a tournament called the MIM to 12. Senzo, maybe you know better about this. I don't know if that tournament still as well. But
I don't know if it's still there, but yeah, I remember it for sure.
Yeah, so it was a round robin. Would always get knocked out in the first round because we're playing the likes of Genius Chitsikwe, Fungwama Efu, Trevor Ngube, all these guys. And these guys were like, they were heroes. But we had to go into the court with these guys and we're just no match for them. Regardless of the talent that we might have had, you're playing with guys who ate and breathed tennis all the time. So, we'd get in a game. I don't know if we got in a game actually, but we'd score some points. Yeah, so that's why we couldn't beat these guys because of this program. Yeah, so it was really tough for us. And them beating us, nobody ever talked about the development program. It was always, you guys were beaten. And that was it. So yeah, so let Senzo talk a bit more, and then I'll come back later and talk about how it affected the neighborhood. Yeah.
It affected the neighborhood.
I'm going to trust Senzo on this because to me it sounds like you're making all these excuses about why you weren't so good. But Senzo, it sounds like you know quite a bit about this program. Were you also involved in it, Bulawayo?
No, so I think Zim tennis it's always been a small group. It's always been a family. So with Bulawayo, with Harare, with Mutare, there were always like specific programs and certain coaches who kind of ran these different, the provinces, and they all knew each other. And during school holidays, all we did was play tournaments, whether we played provincial, then if you made the national team, then you would travel to Namibia, Botswana, and the like. So like it was a very close-knit group of people. I'm very good friends with people that I met there still. And then it was the same every 3 months, every 4 months, you knew those guys. So, maybe I'm not quite the era of the Genius Chidzikwes. I'm more like his younger brother era. But effectively, all these Mutare guys, I'll tell you one thing, Mutare was known for cheating. And I'll swear this down. Mutare people were known for hoodwinking, lying calls were out. They were just the worst. But in everything, it still boiled down to the fact that, there's people who I trained with in Bulawayo, girls and guys, not that many people. So girls and guys, we all trained together every weekend, kind of in and out, 2-3 hours a day, like every day, Monday to Friday, by the time that I was only playing tennis. And just preparing for these tournaments all around the country. And really commiserating with these guys. It was for sure a family environment, and you had sponsors like the Lindsays and other people who really took tennis in Zimbabwe quite seriously and poured their heart and their money into kind of trying to make sure that everyone who had a chance, who had a shot, did as best as they could and went as far as their talents could take them without that money aspect coming in. Yeah.
I love that. And from the sound of this program and from what you're saying is it sort of equaled the playing field in a way. And would that have been something that also led to you playing, or were you just always in and around tennis?
Yeah, and I was always in and around tennis. Like I said, I loved sport throughout. So as much as I played tennis a lot, I also played a lot of field hockey. I was playing, you know, everything. Even in primary school, I remember I was like the girl on the boys' cricket team and like everything. And then as I kind of got older, I had to shed the sports down. So it ended up being field hockey and tennis all throughout. But tennis was definitely the primary sport. The thing about tennis was quite pricey. So what these kind of academies and all these organizations helped with was the funding. Because if you think like you buy a pair of shoes and these shoes last you 2, maybe 3 months, and like at the time, I think the equivalent now is a pair of good tennis shoes will run you like 1,500 rand. And then you get rackets, and these rackets needed stringing, and you needed like all this other like equipment, shirts, you needed tennis balls or another thing that we really struggled with because they get worn, right? So you needed to get new ones. And what these programs did is like everyone across provinces helped each other. I think Harare had, financially speaking, had it best. And then yeah, it was just about making sure that people who had the talents and who could go far were really supported in that. But yeah, it was everyone was a family, man. Everyone played together. People swapped rackets. People, even I remember there was a time where there's certain guys from, you know, like other teams, they were literally changing shoes for matches. They were sharing shoes. So it was a struggle environment. And I'll say it was only when I got to varsity when I realized we struggled. Like we were cramped in combis going up to Harare to play tournaments. We would like stay at like coaches' houses. They would just like open up the living room area, and then we're all kind of camping, like breakfast being like eggs and bread. And it was like proper, like you never say these guys are playing tennis, which is kind of such a kind of a bougie sport. It was roughing it, but just trying. Yeah.
Wow. I never knew that side of tennis. And for me, just hearing that is very humbling. And to see people be willing to put in that sacrifice, to put in that time and effort in instances like that. And again, I want to jump across to Baynham, where obviously tennis kept you away from so much. I don't know what else you'd have been up to if you weren't playing tennis. And as Senzo says, it was a family. It was different type of people from different walks of life. And you mentioned something earlier where you said something about the neighborhood, and I want you to just go into that just a little bit more.
Yeah, so in the hood, the township, tennis played a huge role when you were growing up, because what would happen is that we had like a community center. So in the community center, there was a big football field. There was a tennis court. There was a netball. Yeah, there was a netball pitch. And so all these were like flocked with people all the time. But the biggest draw was the tennis, because you had all these superstars coming through and showcasing. And it was like an event. Every Saturday afternoon was like an event, and everybody would pack to the tennis court. And we used to call these guys peacocks because they used to strut around like peacocks in their fancy tracksuits, Zim tracksuits, tackies, and nice bags and tennis rackets. Shah Senzo, we didn't have it that easy, and the guys didn't share their rackets. Those guys wouldn't let you touch their rackets. It wasn't that rosy in our neck of the woods. But tennis definitely did keep people from a lot, because it brought neighborhoods together. Neighborhoods would play against each other, and it wasn't beef. It was coming together as a community, and people support each other. I mean, we call these guys peacocks, but these guys were representing us, and we always wanted to read in the newspaper that so-and-so beat such and such, or has done this and that. So they were our people. They were representing all of us. So they were something to look forward to. And then, I mean, as they grew older, a lot of them were taken by on scholarships to private schools in Harare. And that was something that people looked up to. You know what? If I play tennis well, I can actually better my life. And they're getting scholarships, so it didn't just affect them, but it helped the whole family, because now the parents didn't have to worry about school fees and tackies and and all these expensive things that Senzo mentioned. I mean, tennis was really was a bougie sport. So for me, so Gordon, I have to correct you here, because I know if some people are watching this, they're gonna say, this guy is making stuff up. So for me, if I was watching and participating, but not in the forefront as tennis taking me out, but I could see the effect that it had on a lot of youths within our neighborhoods. And I mean, I would have liked it for myself, but it just wasn't happening that way. But I'm still grateful for that. And I mean, I'm friends with a lot of these guys, even up to now, but it brought people together. It brought people together. And I remember one guy, so there's tennis, there was a whole tennis movement, and then there was a table tennis movement that was going on. This guy was a known bully. He used to bully people and used to take our money. We used to get down the bus and run because this guy would be waiting. But he started playing table tennis, and he even made it to Zim. And he stopped all of that. I mean, he stopped all of that, but he's late now. May his soul rest in peace. But the guy, his life totally changed. But table tennis wasn't as funded as tennis, and it wasn't such a big sport. But it also showed, and he came from a really rough neighborhood. I call it a rough neighborhood. And that also shone a light on these youths who also aspired to play. I couldn't believe the guy when I met him, and I was happy to see him. And I was like, "Bruh, you are a bully. You used to bully us." I told him straight. But it was all love, because he had left that space because of his commitment to the sport. So for tennis in Mutare, definitely played a big role in getting guys out of the hood. Eventually, all these boys went out to the US mostly on tennis scholarships, and that brought their whole families up. And now they also bring siblings to the US. So it empowered, I could probably say, a generation. And it pains me that this whole infrastructure is gone now. And I mean, cricket has taken over tennis now. Cricket has taken over tennis. We didn't have cricket in the hood. We actually introduced cricket in the hood. Nobody played cricket in the hood. So we go to a golf course that was run down, and we taught people how to play cricket, and we played cricket with them. A lot of talented boys, but they only played on Saturdays and on holidays. And then they went back to school. There was no cricket. So yeah, so that was the story, man, of the hood. It brought people out the hood, and it gave them a chance at life, and inspired others as well that they can also do the same, especially during our period of growing up.
What a beautiful story. And for those who have just tuned in and are watching, we've got Baynham, Goredema, and Senzo Maphisa who've joined us today. And as you can hear, they're talking about their humble beginnings. They're talking about what tennis did for them, what it did for their lives. And I just want to jump quite a few steps here and speak to Senzo. Obviously, you were privileged enough to play tennis outside of Zimbabwe, outside of Africa. You got a taste of what it's like playing a step up. So you've come from the streets, to say, and you're playing on the bougie. I've just learned that word now, the bougie courts. How was that for you?
Yeah, no, so I think that was the goal. So you had asked at the beginning, was the goal to play professionally? And the answer was no. I think my parents were both very education oriented, and they said, listen, school comes first. You're going to go to varsity, come hell, come high water. So for me, tennis was kind of that avenue to going overseas. You know, my mom was also quite a big proponent of like getting out of the continent and kind of getting into a new environment and learning new things. So that was a great way to do it. So yeah, after countless tennis videos and interviews and applications, you know, I landed in the US. So I went to a place called Trinity College, which is in Connecticut, which is in the north of the US, where it is cold. So I landed there. It was the worst winter they had had. I think still worst winter recorded in Connecticut. Me coming from sunny Bulawayo. So like midwinter, I started mid-semester because the year starts normally in August, but you know, my mom was like, no, just go start in the middle of the year. So I started like mid-semester when everyone had kind of gotten the lay of the land and I was new there. but it was very nerve-wracking. I was extremely nervous. I know for that semester, I didn't play well. And I remember that awkward moment when you can see coaches wondering, hey, was she worth it? You know, like, she's not what we thought she would be, because it was just such a new environment. Like the people I'd played tennis with my whole life. So this was the first time being part of a team where I didn't know a person since I was like 6, 7 years old. So that they were indoor courts and the system ran very differently. Like I said, coming from this communal place where there's a lot more, I think there's camaraderie and struggle. So like, and going to a place where there isn't any struggle and you have tennis balls for days, and they gave me like, at least, I kid you not, at least like 6, 7 sweaters minus like 10 t-shirts, and just be like, yeah, here's like kit for all these things, and just like, wow, this is a lot. So it was a big adjustment. It was also a lot of hard work. So again, it wasn't only training in tennis, it was condition training, fitness, going to the gym, having these regimes and everything, even tutoring. So also academically, you had to keep a certain standard. So it was literally a full-time job, and it was a smaller school. So it's not like, so they have divisions in the US. So it wasn't like the Division 1 where you get these big schools. But in terms of competition is competition. What I find in the US is that, like, even if it's like a 6-year-old soccer game, like, people are revved to go. Like no matter what it is, people are competitive, and everyone worked extremely hard. And yeah, it was a great environment. I won't lie. I had an incredible 3.5 years there. And yeah, it was nothing but lessons, very valuable lessons, and very appreciative for that experience, for sure.
Oh, you've said so much, and I want to ask you like 15 questions all at once. But obviously, we are limited. A disclaimer that I didn't put out in the beginning, because today there's 3 of us on. We're going to push through to 1:45, so we have about 20 odd minutes to go still. So I didn't want to just have to rush this. And Senzo, you mentioned something here which was powerful for me. Is you said that for you it wasn't always about playing professional sport. It wasn't all about going on and playing on TV, but there was a different agenda. You know, you were looking at how sport can better your life, how it can get you out of Africa and expose you to all these other things. And you know, it's not all the time that people play sport with that in mind. And from an African context, and I'm going to jump over to Baynham, who's a parent. Obviously, when you were growing up, what you were telling your kids today and what maybe your parents were telling you back then, how much of a difference is there? You know, are you that parent who's more encouraging with sports? Yeah.
So I was kind of, I have to say I was fortunate, because my parents kind of supported me with whatever we wanted to do, really, so long as it was on the straight and narrow. And I'm the same with my kids. And I think it's one big thing that disappoints me a lot about South Africa, is that sport is generally not taken seriously. It's only taken seriously in the private schools. And everywhere else, sport is not taken seriously at all. And yet I feel that sport is so important, especially with the crime rate and the idleness that's just with these students. They need to be on the field playing sport and getting to socialize, because sport plays a big socializing role. And that's what's missing in a lot of these children's lives. So with my kids, I tried to go out my way to play as much sport as we can. I encourage them to play as much sport as they can. And they've seen some of their peers get scholarships to play and to go to good schools. So yeah, I'm totally supportive, and I commend the parents as well. I think that's something that I realized as well, that a lot of the parents of the guys that we were watching were supportive of these guys, and that was very important, because the mantra then definitely was sport first. I mean, my dad supported us, but there was still that education in the mind. Our goal was, make sure you make it to UZ. You can play your sport and everything, but make sure you make it to UZ. So that was the kind of goal that we had. But academically, even our school, they actually bet us on that. If you come here for A's, you're in the wrong place. That was our headmaster telling us that. So UZ was out of the question, but I mean, we just strived to get to UZ, but it was out of the question. So I found it important that they allowed us to do that, to play sport to the best level we could. I think it brings another dynamic of how playing for Zimbabwe wasn't a thing for us. We weren't even looking to play for Zimbabwe because of the dynamics in Mutare. It was just tennis that had players who played for Zimbabwe. Every other sport, we were a fringe city, and it's only later that boys started making it to cricket and rugby, but generally they didn't look at Mutare. So that we were not thinking about playing for Zimbabwe cricket, and the system also showed us that we're generally not welcome. So we would play sport, and then after sport, all the guys would stop playing. I mean, my stream, all the guys that were really talented who played under 19 cricket, rugby, they all stopped playing sport because there didn't seem to be any future for them in sport because of the system that was there. There was a gatekeeping system that was there. That's a topic for another day, I guess. So yeah, I'm definitely for if my children want to play, I'm going to support them. And unfortunately, here we actually have to go to extra sessions elsewhere outside of school, and that's what I really and that's why also sometimes other parents can't support their children fully because they can't really see the trajectory of their careers playing sport. I mean, now we've got more players on TV, etc., but it still has to start with the parents saying it's okay to go out and play the best you can, because if that stifling attitude starts at home, you're fighting bigger battles than Senzo's been fighting when she's talking about the struggles that they faced. But if your parents are saying, look, that struggle is worth it, then you are able to go out there and also.
Yeah, I think we've lost Baynham there for a second.
Connection is.
No, that's fine. Look, you've hit so many points home. You've driven so many points home. And again, I keep saying I want to ask and ask and ask and ask. But you've said one really, really important thing in what you've spoken about, where you've said the support of the parent is important. And one thing that we certainly are trying to drive as Africa's Sports Consultancy is a lot of when kids are introduced to sport, growing up as African children, our unique African challenges are not always contextualized. We are taught, all the books we read, everything else we have around us does not necessarily speak to our unique situation. And like Senzo said, her thinking of going out of Africa to go to university and then play tennis over there was different. And she was lucky enough that she found the balance of school and studies, of studies and sport. A lot of the times in an African context, we are pushed towards one thing or the other. So I always take my hat off to people who are able to find the balance with both those things. And Senzo, obviously now you're a professional in the working world. And how has sport benefited you to get you to where you are today?
Oh man, it's very difficult to pinpoint one thing. I think the easiest thing, which anyone will always tell you, is discipline. And I think it's within sport, but with anything else someone does, if you dedicate a certain amount of time and energy throughout your life, you learn just a sense of discipline. And I think it's different in addition to going to school, because obviously when you're going to school, you have to get up and, you go to class and all of those things. But picking something that you don't, I guess, quote unquote, have to do, because educational is the primary thing. But then just having this additional aspect of tennis, of like, for me, it was tennis, where all my weekends, like friends would say, oh, we're going to the movies or we're going to do this and that. And for me, it was in the morning, I'm practicing. So come what may, that's what's happening. And a lot of the time in the afternoon, I'm tired. So yes, I would see friends, but you know, that also wasn't a very big aspect. So like just being able to acknowledge that there's certain things that may not be fun at the time that do need to be done. And there were plenty of times that I didn't feel like running, didn't feel like sprints and drills, but that repetition and being able to garner that discipline is completely helpful now in my professional life, because again, I think I'm in this especially COVID world, where it's like a lot of work is now self-directed. So working from home and, you know, having no one to monitor you there. And I'm hearing a lot of people say, oh, it's tough to get going. It's tough to do what you need to do. And I have those times, but ultimately that training of sport and tennis and discipline, it comes in very handy, because kind of in every little thing that I endeavor to do, I approach it in that athlete mentality, that it's a challenge that you have to practice, you have to train, and you have to be dedicated. So yeah, the one word there is discipline. That's what it gave me.
And you've mentioned that word, and I kid you not, we've had professionals here on the show. We've had people who've played at the highest level, and one common denominator is discipline. That word discipline has come out as a theme constantly. And I'm not surprised, and I'm not surprised how far you've gone. And Baynham, you've come out of an environment which wasn't as allowing. And as you said, you were in a school which encouraged you to play lots of sport, which obviously encouraged discipline in that regard. And even though, like you said, you weren't really in the forefront, but there's so much that tennis has done for you, isn't there?
Yeah, we were forced to play sport at school, generally. We had to play, because we didn't even have enough boys to make up a team. So the last 4 boys in a team of any sport would be there in a really bad state of not wanting to be there. But like Senzo as well said, is that, and it wasn't just tennis as well, it was just all the sports that we played. The discipline definitely was a top thing. But I think another big thing for me was learning to work together with people you might not necessarily have agreed with, but you work towards a common goal. So my best lessons in leadership were, I was the captain of the seconds rugby team. I'll never forget that year because of what it taught me in leadership. I had like 3 boys who were constantly on each other's backs. They wanted to fight within us. They wanted to fight each other all the time. They didn't get along. But when it came to rugby, these guys would just focus. They would focus, they'd forget all this, and would huddle together. We'd go out there, we'd give it our best. And it was that camaraderie that helped to solve some of the issues off the field. They respected each other more off the field. They didn't feel the urge to be on each other's backs anymore, because when we went out and won, it was our victory together. So sport brought that for me, that socializing of bringing people together and resolving conflict, because that was a conflict that was resolved through sport. If they didn't be on the same team, that conflict might not have been resolved. So sport taught me to get on. I mean, so I was like in upper 6 and the form 5s and form 4s. So I mean, I didn't really mingle with the form 4s, but now when they're in the team with me, they're part of us. They're not juniors anymore. They're part of our team, and we work together. So which is why I'm always saying, I'm sure you know, in our discussions also with Godwill, sport needs to be put on people, especially team sports, so that they learn these dynamics of society. I think in Shona there's a saying that says, well, it's like a saying that they say if you're going to school, even if you're not getting A's, even if you're not the best of school, just go and grow up with other people. So what they're basically saying is that school socializes you to be a good person. Generally, it's going to socialize you in a good direction if you go and mingle with other people of various and diverse backgrounds. Go. So I think that's what also why our parents are sending us to school. So sometimes they might not have actually said it in that way or figured it out in that way, but generally when they kept on emphasizing on school, it was also because of the socializing aspect of school and sport coming together as teams. I think it's something that we actually need to continue to nurture in our schools and not lose the sport. Let's not lose the sport. Let's lose drama or something else, but not sport. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. I don't think any drama teachers out there will be happy to hear that comment from you. But it's fantastic. Look, we're pushing towards the end, so I want to just give people an opportunity to post a few comments, a few questions, if there are any, for Senzo or Baynham, and we can definitely go into them. Senzo, one question I always never want to walk away from this without asking, because we never know who's watching, we never know who's going to see this, but what would you tell 15-year-old Senzo to have done differently? Or have done the same? Let me not just leave it to differently.
I don't know. What would I have told 15-year-old me to do? It would be to cherish those times. I don't know if it's hindsight, that's 2020, but when I was in it, there were a lot of times when it wasn't fun, and I don't think I appreciated those moments when I was in them, which I guess maybe is life in general, and that you don't really appreciate them. But yes, I would say that. And I would also say, yeah, to just be appreciative to everybody, to that situation, and to everyone around you, and just to continue working hard, and to just keep going and not pump the brakes at all. Yeah.
Yeah, it's brilliant to hear that, because again, I had someone with a comment the other week saying we're bringing all these celebrities and people who have done it at the highest level, but it is nice to be in touch with people, normal people who are your day-to-day person, who are showing us a good example that to be successful in sport, you don't necessarily have to play at the highest level. Their success comes in all different ways. But I've seen a question come in here. I'm just going to read it. The question is, what would it take for athletes and sportsmen alike to sustain their livelihood, considering sports is mainly about when you're in your youth? So I will throw that at you, Baynham. I think you're the oldest and wisest here.
And probably the most least experience with that very question. Shucks. I'm not sure how I can advise on that, because I would like to say, make sure you get an education, because of how, I mean, my dad used to say that yes, you want to play sport, but you can be injured tomorrow and you will not be able to go back on the field. What do you have to fall back on? So have something to fall back on, because I think sport also teaches you through the discipline that it teaches you, it also teaches you, I think, to get a sense of savviness in terms of, if you were to go into business, I think you would be able to have the discipline to manage your finances. I don't know if that's the right thing. I don't know if sportsmen manage their finances well, but surely you can apply that discipline and you've had in other sectors of self-development. So for me, I think it'll be a general advice to say, have something to fall back on. Give it your all, but always have something to fall back on, because of the uncertainty of sport, and injury is one of the top things on the list. If I was injured today, what are you going to do?
Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense, and thank you for that. That was a very loaded question, and you've answered it pretty well, I think. It's always difficult to answer that question, because it's not easy. I think there's no one way to to answer that. You know, there's lots of ways to go about it. But I see there's another question which I'll let Senzo have, and it's, what was your biggest disappointment in your career, and how did that shape you to become better? Oh, that's quite a big one as well.
Oh wow, it's not one. It was countless, right? There were plenty painful losses, both from a team perspective and an individual perspective. Sure, there's stories of finals lost, very close matches, the difference between a point here and there. So I think there was no single greatest loss, because at each point in time that I experienced that loss, it felt like the single greatest one at that stage. So when I look back, I'm not going to point to one, but because it was all of them. But what it taught me is resilience. What it taught me is to keep trying and to keep going back. And the fact is that, you know, with each loss, there were some good times and there were some bad times, and to take the good along with the bad, because you can't pick and choose the experiences you want in life. So I think I used to be like, oh, I wish I had like won that one. But then it's like, okay, do you wish you had lost another one? Do you wish? So we can't like want all our lives to be rosy, and we just have to accept the experiences that we have and completely, and grow from it, and to keep trying. And failure is a part of life. And you do learn more from the losses than the wins. And that is because the losses I remember much more clearly than I do the wins. So like the lessons come out of there much, much more starkly.
Absolutely brilliant. And you've nailed it there to say you remember much more from losing than when you win. And as a Liverpool fan who remembers the 7-2 loss a couple of weeks ago, I know Baynham will have a big chuckle because we're both Liverpool fans.
No.
Wow, strong denial. But look, it's Senzo, you've nailed it. And I think that's what we are about. And I'm proud to be a part of the team that I'm with now, where I think the earlier question that was asked to say, how to sustain livelihoods. And we've identified 4 areas, and the 4 areas we have identified is your mentoring. And I think, Senzo, you spoke to it a little bit earlier, your sports mentoring, your financial planning, which Baynham alluded to just now, personal development, which is another leg that we found very, very important, and finally, financial planning. So, you know, we want to look at these areas for sports people. We want to look at these areas for the youth, because once you're empowered in those 4 specific areas, we feel that gives you the best grounding that you can get going forward, whether you end up as a professional athlete or not. So thank you so much both for joining in tonight. It is these conversations that I think are important to be having, and to be able to inspire a kid or someone out there and show that it is very possible to make a success of your life, be it in sports. And like Senzo said, she never dreamt of playing in a World Cup or anything, but she knew what her goals were, which is absolutely amazing. So thank you both. I don't know if you have any parting shots. I'll start with you, Baynham, before we close it up.
No parting shots, man. No parting shots. But I just hope that sport is taken more seriously, especially for my context, especially because I used to stay next to a high school, and I see the effect that idleness has on youths. And I feel that it can actually cut down on the crime. And also, you know, I think a few years ago, there was a stat that said that 72% of the people that start in grade 1 don't finish the equivalent to Form 4 here. So 72% don't finish because they just drop out for various reasons. And I think if sport was there and compulsory, I think sport needs to be compulsory in school. It would have saved a lot of those boys from dropping out of school, because some actually go through school because of sport and come to school because of sport. and get an education along the way. So I think it's beneficial in that sense. Yeah.
Guilty. Senzo?
Yeah, no, I guess just to tag on to what Baynham said is that there's a lot of opportunity in sport. It's not only that the goal for everyone is not only being the best player in whatever sense or form. There's even coaches, there's mentors, there's there's so many other avenues, like the finance in sport and represented. There's so many other avenues and camaraderie that you can get from it. So it's really not always only about the skill. It's about the hard work and the lessons that you gain from whatever team or activity that you're in. And yeah, it takes you, like, these are lessons that are ingrained for a lifetime. So.
Fantastic. The way, Senzo, you've just put it there, that is the best way we could close off. And thank you so much for tuning in and for joining us and opening up to us, to both you and to Baynham. And thanks to everyone who's tuned in and for the comments, the questions, and the support. And as I always say, keep looking after your loved ones, keep sanitizing those hands, and let's keep wearing those masks. From my side, that's it, and we'll catch you again next week.
Well, thanks.